Good morning, a very warm welcome and thank you for your presence at this session. I'm going to take a few moments to build the contextual framework to this panel discussion as Sumana just sets up a musical instrument for a demonstration during the session. The book, Songs of the Clay Pot, author and musician Sumana Chandrashekar traces the journey of a musical instrument from its very beginning, from the earth that shapes it, to the hands that mold it, and to the artists who sort of cajole the early sounds. In a way, the storyline is a very gentle reminder that sound and music begins much before the performance stage. It sort of begins in the womb of the riverbed, at the potter's wheel, during the slow firing of earth moving towards stone, and finally to the artists who spend such a big lifetime trying to get sounds out of it. In that sense, it's not a story of just percussion. It's a story of an art form, its tradition, its continuity, and about the community of the makers as well as the artists who bring this lovely sound to you. Please join me in giving a big round of applause to Sumana for the book, Songs of the Clay Pot. So Sumana,
yes.
Want to test your mic? Check. Yeah. So, let's do a do-re-mi moment. Yeah?
Yes.
Let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
When you look at a musical instrument like a ghatam, its source, its origins are something which is extremely rare. And share the journey of the instrument, and in your book you have sort of brought out a beautiful structure where you compare the ghatam to a human body, a human living being. And the chapters, the index is really revolutionary in the context that it is based on the elements, earth, fire, air, space, water, which sort of affect the human body. There's a sort of circularity to your writing. So etch that picture for us.
Sure, Sadhana. Thank you so much. Such a delight being here at the Bangalore Lit Fest and speaking with Sadhana and to all of you. Most of you would be aware, I think, the metaphor of the pot is something that any Indian mind would be able to immediately recognize. The ghat, the matka, the pot is everywhere. You take Upanishadic literature, it's there. It's there in Sufi traditions. Some of you might know the story of Soni and Mahiwal, where the pot is such a central character. And we have Bhakti literature, for instance, across the country. There are abhangs, there are vachanas, there's baul songs. All of them use the metaphor of the pot. And of course there's Kabir who talks prolifically about the ghat, and he says Chadariya Jini re Jini Panch Tattva se. So talking about the body, he says this body is made of the 5 elements, and so is the pot. And then you find it in Buddhist literature. They talk about the leaking pot, the dirty pot, and so on. So the pot is across, actually I would say it's across Asian traditions as well. And if this is made of the 5 elements, there's earth, as you can see. It is mixed with water, dried in air, passes through fire, and what you have inside is space. And because it's made of the 5 elements, the ghat is such a living, breathing entity. And when mystics talk about the human body, it's the exact same language that they use to say, this body is also made up of the 5 elements. Which means that this also is a living, breathing entity, and therefore the ghat and the body are the same, essentially. So this is the larger philosophical connection that the ghat and the human body have. And this is something that anybody in India, whether you go to villages, you go to cities, even children sometimes get this connection so immediately because it's part of the Indian consciousness. And the book had to be, if I was writing about the Ghat, there was no way I could not bring in the 5 elements. And the book got structured also like the making of the Ghat. It begins with creation, it moves through the 5 stages, air, water, fire, and space, and then it ends with the breaking, and we come back to creation. So that's how the book is structured. The book is the Ghat in some ways. Yeah.
You know, I would urge you all to read it because it's very evocatively that she brings, as an author and as a practicing musician, she brings out the aspect of the Ghatam which talks to you. So it's extremely, very sensitively brought out. Moving on, what drove you to the musical aesthetics, to the sonic landscape of the Ghatam?
My primary training, sadhana, was as a Carnatic music vocalist. And for several years, since the time I was a kid, I was practicing as a vocalist. I was performing as a vocalist. And it was this moment sometime in 2008-9, when I felt a deep, deep calling. And a calling, as you all know, it happens in a moment of intense struggle, an inner struggle. It could be an intense search for meaning and purpose in life. And a calling can happen, not just the arts calling, it could happen, I've had people tell me that they've had a calling to become farmers, or to start playing a sport, or to become artists, of course. So there are all these stories, and a calling can happen for different reasons. And my calling happened in this moment. It was a very sensorial experience. I felt my fingers moving on my tummy. I started smelling earth in the middle of the heat of summer. When I say I started smelling earth, it was the petrichor. It was like the fragrance of earth after the first drops of rain. And this was in summer when there was absolutely no rain at all. And I heard sounds of the pot. I would wake up in the middle of the night feeling I'm hearing these sounds, I'm smelling the earth, and my fingers are moving. And this for me is really surreal. I don't know why and how these things happen. When I look back, I feel that it's such a surreal experience. But I do recognize that this was a very sensorial invitation to me to embrace the Ghatam with all my senses. And that's when I started looking for a guru, and I found my guru, started playing. So that's a different journey. But just to spend another couple of lines on this calling, it's beautiful. And what it did to me is also beautiful. See, as a vocalist, sometimes I can't see my voice. I can only feel the voice. And one is not always aware of the entire body when one is singing, unless it's so much part of the pedagogy and you're made to think and train in that manner. But when I started playing the Ghatam, and playing the Ghatam as an adult, not as a child, when things just happen, you may not be mindful of it. But as an adult, when I started playing, the first thing that this brought me to was to see home in my body, to arrive in my body, to see how my entire body was participating in the making of this music, from my heels to my thighs to my stomach, my chest, the breathing, the head, everything was participating in this music making. And to arrive to be able to access the wisdom of the body, to see the corporeal as something that holds a lot of knowledge, was a delightful homecoming for me.
I think thanks to your sensorial experience, the music world is very enriched to have you perform for us with the Ghatam. A show of hands, how many were there in the morning performance? I think a round of applause for what she did in the morning. You know, so having shared your experience, it sort of ties up and circles back to the fact that you write in your book right through. It's not a declarative statement, but it's a very subterranean sentiment that runs across the book, that you look at the ghatam, the human body, and yourself in all human beings' resilience as well as the frailty. And it's that finding that golden mean that sort of brings this music so beautifully out. So let's segue to, a musical instrument is sort of noticed only when the artist holds it. But the journey has begun much before, as we alluded to in our introduction. So in your book, you have a very, very sensitive chapter called Geographies in the Making. And not too many people know about the makers. They are made in different geographies, but there is a central unifying theme in the construction. And do expand on the fact that we know about clay in pottery, we know about clay in terms of decorative. We don't understand that clay has an element of sound to it. Yeah? So do share the journey of the geography in the making of the ghatam.
Thank you, Sadhana. Actually, the fact that you found this chapter on geographies to be very sensitive, that's very special for me, because there are people who've told me that there are other sections, other chapters in the book, the more personal stories that are more sensitive and moving, but to find the geographies part very moving is so special for me, and I think there's something you are alluding to when you're saying this. The fact that it's not just geography, it's not just a spatial search, it's a sonic search. It's a seeking for the sound of clay, it's the sound of earth. And like Sadhana said, clay is all around us, whether we are aware of it or not aware of it. We have it in our homes, it's all over, it's here, it's everywhere. But to seek the sound of earth, and that is the seeking of this geography. That is the it's a sonic exploration of this of clay. So when I started playing the ghatam, one of the big questions for me was, it's all right, I'm looking at the sound here, then this is a whole sonic landscape. But what is the larger context of this landscape? Where does this clay come from? Who are the people behind it? Where is this material coming from? It became an existential question that was bothering me every day. And that's when I went back to the source of this instrument. In this case, the Mana Madurai Ghatam. Mana Madurai is a place that is close to Madurai in Tamil Nadu. And at the time that I started playing, there were 3 important centers, one being Mana Madurai, and this is the Mana Madurai Ghatam that you see here. Slightly more robust and thicker, stronger, heavier, all of that. And just to add a little note, that the particular styles of ghatam playing, now to most of us, a pot is a pot. One would ask, what is the difference between this pot and that pot? Not just sonically, even the playing techniques, most of us would think come only from the artist. No, it comes because of the structure of the instrument, because of the sound and the make of the instrument. For instance, one technique, if I am playing on a very robust Mana Madurai Ghatam and I start playing the same technique on another pot, I don't think that pot will be able to take it. Or playing a softer style on this one wouldn't be able to bring out the sonic quality of this sound. So distinct styles have also emerged because of the instrument itself. There is a creative dialogue that is happening between the instrument and the artist. So it's not just the artist who created the sound or the technique. Now, coming back to what I was saying, there's Mana Madurai Ghatam, there's Devanhalli Ghatam, our own Devanhalli, where the current airport stands. It used to be, for the last over a century, Devanhalli has been a very important center. And then there was the Madras Ghatam. In these 15-16 years of my journey, Devanhalli and Madras have gone extinct. So, and thankfully for us, Manamadurai is still flourishing, it is thriving, but I'm just, it's something that all of us need to be concerned about, that there's development on one side and there's cultural history on the other side. And there's cultural practitioners on the other, crafts people on the other side. How do we go ahead with development without compromising on these cultural practices?
Yeah.
Or how do we embrace them? That's the thing.
Yeah, it can't be either or.
It can't be either or. So these are the geographies that have been making the Ghatam, and I'm sure, and if we go back before the 2000s, we had many more spaces that were doing this. We've lost many of these centers now, sadly.
So if I take a look at a quick time check, I'm going to take a very sharp, incisive turn to a very pertinent theme that exists. You know, Sumana, in society, patriarchy, misogynist thoughts all exist. They have a way of slipping in unchecked into the artistic worlds. Percussion as a genre has always been a male bastion. Women artists before you fought and jostled for space. People like you have jostled and sought spaces on stage. Now, illuminate for us whether there have been structural changes on the stage. It should not be token symbolism. A women artist should be allowed to play with her voice and her talim, her riyaz, and her style. Have there been any structural changes? Have there been any pedagogical shifts?
There have been, of course, in the last few decades, a lot of women have started playing percussion, including my own guru, Sukanya Ram Gopal, who's the first woman to play the Ghatam. And several other younger women have also started playing, which is great. And we also recognize that historically there have been incredible women who've made these forays into what has traditionally been male domains. And as we sit here today, me and a lot of other women percussionists, we are aware that we are standing on the shoulders of all these women who've gone before us. And it's important to acknowledge the things that they've done. Having said that, and of course we do have women playing percussion today. Having said that, you asked about structural and pedagogical changes, and I think it's a very, very pertinent question. What I would say is, while it's great that there are women seen in the field of percussion, I think in terms of structural and pedagogical changes, we do have a journey to make. For the simple fact that when women get on to professions, and in this case percussion, which is where all precedence is of male artists, then what is our reference point? When we get on stage, do we then start playing like men? And then what's the difference? Are we bringing in a new aesthetic to playing? If I as a woman am playing the Ghatam, then how do I bring my woman's body, my experience as a woman, and my own understanding of femininity, or whatever? I could, of course, masculinity and femininity can reside in both genders, that's not the point. But how can I bring my experiences and this body, just the fact that the nature of physical strength, and this is on a very fundamental level I'm saying, the nature of physical strength in a male body is different from the nature of physical strength in a woman's body. Now, when a composition is made in such a way that it demands a certain kind of playing, then how can pedagogically that be shifted to suit a woman's playing? These are things that I think we need to think about. We haven't thought about so much, and sometimes we do get on stage and we are playing with other male artists, and the energy is kind of, we tend to absorb that energy and go on with that. But I think there's a journey we need to make there.
And rhythm is really not about who's the loudest sound.
No,
it's a musical sound, you know. So there is we have about 5 minutes left. Let's address one of the most significant features of your book. When you write from a music researcher's point of view, you there is a tendency for the writer not to look at the practitioner's point of view.
Yeah.
And when you have biographies, it is from the perspective of the musician. So what you've done is you've sort of found a golden mean. You've written from a researcher, simultaneously you adopt both roles.
Yes.
You become a musical researcher, you talk about musical histories, and then you talk from a practitioner's point of view. Was that a conscious decision, or it was an organic growth out of your own exploratory writings?
It was both, Sadhana. I think research in this country is loaded with, it's a very loaded term, and it carries the burden of academia. There's researchers on one side and there's practitioners and musicologists on the other. Musicologists write about music very objectively. Researchers also do it objectively. Practitioners are expected to just do their practice. They are not expected to become researchers. And this is what is sort of in our consciousness. And there's nothing wrong in it. Of course, we need that kind of research, the rigorous academic kind of research, and we need musicologists telling us theory of music. All of that is valid. But I think the other dimension, which is absolutely rich, is the practitioner's angle. And one of the things that as a critical mind that started playing the ghatam, one of the things that really came to me was my classroom became the site of my research, my everyday classes. This body which is archiving everything, every movement that my guru is teaching me is absorbed into this body, and this body is becoming an archive. So my body became the site of research. And those experiences I thought was absolutely crucial to put out there, and in the form of research, not in the form of just autoethnography or in the form of biography. But my idea was also to look at how the personal is talking to the larger public history of the instrument, and how the public history of the instrument or the larger public history of music is influencing my life, my personal life. These were the two things I was constantly concerned about, and they organically found a way into the book. So to look at on one hand we have biographies, we have memoirs, we have all the personal accounts, and then on the other hand we have research. But what can we do to marry the two? And I think this is a very important, it's a middle path. And to me, this middle path is a very feminist framework for research. That it moves with great fluidity, looking at both the oral history and the written history. It looks at practice and research. It looks at the body and the written word. So all these fluid movements or pathways that got created as part of my practice, those I think found a way to express themselves in the book, and I was constantly moving between the two. This middle path, this feminist methodology of research, I think is very important, and I wish there's more and more work in this area, because often the academia or the practitioner's voice tends to look down upon the other, and it happens both ways. The practitioners think the researchers are just researchers, they don't know how to play. Or the researchers think the practitioners don't know anything. I think it's important that we marry the two, and then we find bridges and linkages between the two. By doing that, I think music research is going to take on very rich dimensions. That's what came into the book as well.
I hope in the digital avatar, the education policy frameworks are listening to this, and we have a course on feminist methodology of research. So I'm going to request Sumana, for whatever little time that we have left, to just give you a demonstration. We can't end the session without sound and music of the Gadam. Though she did a lovely performance for us in the morning.
I don't know if this mic is working. It's working.
That was Sounds from the Earth, a rare musical instrument where music and sound both began much before the performance stages, as we alluded to in the introduction. Thank you, Sumana, for the lovely concert in the morning and for this talk. Thank you for being a wonderful audience.